The Silicon Valley earthquake. When Musk's words shattered Bezos's empire. At exactly 11:47 p.m. Pacific Time, Jeff Bezos received a phone call that would change everything. The voice on the other end was shaking, barely coherent. "Sir, you need to see this. Now." It wasn't his security team. It wasn't his lawyers. It was his personal assistant, someone who had never called him after hours in 15 years of service. The urgency in her voice cut through the night like a blade. Bezos was in his study, surrounded by holographic displays showing Amazon's real-time global operations. Every second, millions of transactions flowed through his empire. Every minute, his wealth fluctuated by amounts that could fund small nations. He was the architect of the modern world's commerce, a man who had turned shopping into an art form and logistics into poetry. But that phone call? That phone call was about to reveal that his personal life had become someone else's chess game. "What happened?" he asked, his voice steady despite the knot forming in his stomach. "Elon Musk just said something about Lauren." On live television, the entire internet is exploding. Bezos felt the world tilt. In the span of 30 seconds, he would discover that his most carefully guarded secrets had become public entertainment. But the twist that would emerge 12 hours later would prove that this wasn't random. This wasn't a slip of the tongue. This was the opening move in a game so sophisticated that even the world's richest man had been outplayed. Chapter 1. The Perfect Storm. What Elon Musk let slip about Lauren Sanchez did not just ripple across headlines. It tore through Silicon Valley like a Category 5 hurricane, the kind that doesn't just damage buildings, it reshapes entire landscapes. The cameras had been rolling during what was supposed to be a routine tech conference interview. Musk, dressed in his characteristic black t-shirt, had been discussing Tesla's latest innovations when the conversation took an unexpected turn. The interviewer, Sarah Chen from TechCrunch, had pressed him about advertiser boycotts. It was a familiar territory for Musk, who had been dealing with corporate pushback for months. His response started predictably enough. "If somebody is going to try to blackmail me with advertising, blackmail me with money, go fuck yourself. Go fuck yourself." Is that clear? The audience laughed nervously. Others brushed it off as classic Musk bravado, the billionaire who had made unpredictability his brand, who turned Twitter into his personal playground, who launched cars into space because he could. But then, in a moment that would be dissected frame by frame for months to come, Musk's expression shifted. His eyes narrowed, focusing on something beyond the cameras, beyond the audience. And then, with the precision of a surgeon making an incision, he said, "You know what's really interesting? Lauren Sanchez's little collection of insurance policies. I wonder if Jeff knows about all of them." The room fell silent. The interviewer's face went pale. Security personnel shifted uncomfortably. And somewhere in Seattle, Jeff Bezos felt his carefully constructed world begin to crack. Chapter 2. The Ripple Effect. Within minutes, social media erupted. Lauren Sanchez began trending globally. Insurance policies became a hashtag that conspiracy theorists and financial analysts alike began dissecting. But it was Safegate that really caught fire, because somehow, within hours, rumors began circulating about a hidden safe in the Bezos mansion. The internet's collective detective force went into overdrive. Reddit threads stretched for thousands of comments. Twitter became a battlefield of theories. TikTok filled with amateur investigators connecting dots between Lauren's past, her current relationship, and Musk's cryptic comment. But the real earthquake happened behind closed doors, in the corridors of power where whispers carry more weight than headlines. Lauren Sanchez had always been an enigma wrapped in glamour. A former entertainment reporter turned helicopter pilot turned entrepreneur. Her career trajectory read like a Hollywood script. She had dated celebrities, networked with politicians, and somehow always landed on her feet, always in the right place at the right time. Her relationship with Bezos had been portrayed as a fairy tale, the world's richest man finding love with a vibrant, accomplished woman. Their public appearances were perfectly choreographed: yacht trips in the Mediterranean, charity galas in Manhattan, romantic dinners captured by strategically positioned paparazzi. But Musk's comment suggested something darker lurking beneath the surface. Insurance policies implied secrets, leverage, protection against something or someone. And the way he said it, with that characteristic smirk, suggested he knew exactly what those policies contained. Chapter 3. The Safe. According to sources close to the Bezos household, sources who spoke on condition of anonymity because their jobs, and possibly their lives, depended on it, Jeff Bezos discovered the safe 3 days after Musk's comment. It wasn't hidden in the traditional sense. It was built into the wall of Lauren's private study, behind a painting of the Amazon rainforest that she claimed represented her connection to his empire. The irony wasn't lost on anyone who knew the full story. Bezos had always respected privacy, even within his own relationship. Lauren's study was her sanctuary, and he had never violated that boundary. But as Safegate continued to trend, as reporters began camping outside their properties, as Amazon's stock price started to fluctuate based on social media speculation, he made a decision that would change everything. The safe required both a digital code and a biometric scan. Lauren's thumbprint, naturally. But Bezos had resources that most people couldn't imagine. When you control the infrastructure that powers half the internet, when your company employs former intelligence operatives, when your security budget exceeds the GDP of small nations, bypassing a personal safe becomes a matter of logistics, not possibility. What he found inside wasn't just damning, it was explosive. Chapter 4. The contents. The files were meticulously organized, labeled with a precision that spoke to Lauren's journalistic background. But these weren't the kind of stories that made it to air. These were the stories that killed careers, toppled governments, and shifted the balance of global power. Folder 1 contained photographs spanning 2 decades. Lauren with senators, Lauren with foreign dignitaries, Lauren with tech executives who were supposed to be rivals. But these weren't social photos. These were intimate moments, private conversations, handshakes that sealed deals the public never knew existed. Folder 2 held financial records, bank transfers in amounts that would make most people dizzy, flowing through networks of shell companies and offshore accounts. Money moving from defense contractors to media conglomerates, from foreign governments to American political campaigns, all with Lauren's digital fingerprints as a common thread. Folder 3 was the most disturbing. Communications. Encrypted messages between Lauren and individuals whose names appeared on watch lists, whose affiliations ran deeper than anyone suspected. Messages that suggested years of intelligence gathering, of information brokering, of playing multiple sides against each other. But it was Folder 4 that nearly brought Bezos to his knees. It contained detailed dossiers on tech industry leaders, including one with his own name on it. The file documented his habits, his weaknesses, his private communications, his business strategies, information that could only have been gathered by someone with intimate access to his life. The realization hit him like a freight train. He hadn't fallen in love with Lauren Sanchez. He had been targeted by her. Chapter 5. The Network. As Bezos processed the contents of the safe, a larger picture began to emerge. Lauren wasn't working alone. She was part of a network that spanned continents, industries, and decades. A network that collected information like others collected art, that viewed secrets as currency and influence as the ultimate commodity. The files revealed connections to foreign intelligence services, defense contractors seeking inside information on cloud computing contracts, media moguls looking to manipulate public opinion, and politicians hungry for corporate support. Lauren had been the perfect asset. Beautiful, charming, intelligent, and completely invisible as a threat. Her romantic relationships weren't matters of the heart, they were strategic deployments. Each boyfriend, each affair, each marriage provided access to new circles, new information, new leverage. And Jeff Bezos, with his control over AWS and its government contracts, with his influence over global commerce, with his vast personal fortune, represented the ultimate prize. The most chilling document in the collection was a psychological profile of Bezos himself, written in Lauren's hand but clearly informed by professional intelligence analysis. It detailed his emotional vulnerabilities, his need for control, his desire to be seen as more than just a businessman. It read like a manual for manipulation, a step-by-step guide to making one of the world's most powerful men fall in love. Chapter 6. Musk's Gambit. But how did Elon Musk know? That question haunted Bezos as he sat in his study, surrounded by evidence of his own betrayal. The answer, when it came, was almost anticlimactic in its simplicity. Musk had been targeted too. 3 years earlier, before his relationship with Grimes became public, Musk had briefly dated a woman named Alexandra Petrov. Beautiful, intelligent, mysterious, she had all the qualities that attracted powerful men. The relationship lasted only 6 weeks, but that was long enough. Musk's hyperactive mind, his tendency to overshare, his need to be the smartest person in any room, these traits made him vulnerable in ways he never anticipated. Alexandra had gathered information not through hacking or surveillance, but through simple conversation. Pillow talk became intelligence briefings. Casual questions about business rivals became strategic reconnaissance, but Musk had discovered the deception earlier than Bezos. A chance encounter at a tech conference, a moment of recognition between Alexandra and Lauren that lasted a fraction of a second too long. And Musk's paranoid genius kicked into overdrive. He hired private investigators, deployed the same network of information brokers that had targeted him, and slowly uncovered the larger conspiracy. For 3 years, he had been gathering evidence, building his case, waiting for the perfect moment to strike. The live television interview was his opening move, but it wasn't random. He knew about the safe because he had been tracking similar safes, similar networks, similar operations for years. His comment about insurance policies wasn't speculation. It was based on intelligence he had purchased from former operatives who had grown tired of the game, who were ready to burn down the network that had used them. Chapter 7. The Revelation. The hook that began this story, the phone call that changed everything, was actually the second domino to fall. The first was Musk's calculated revelation, but the third domino, the one that would bring the entire network crashing down, was yet to come. Because Lauren Sanchez wasn't just an asset, she was also a victim. The files that Bezos discovered told only part of the story. They documented her actions, her relationships, her intelligence gathering, but they didn't explain how she had been recruited, how she had been trained, how she had been controlled. That information was stored elsewhere, in a location that even Lauren didn't know about. It was insurance against the insurance, protection against the protectors. And when it finally came to light, it revealed a web of manipulation so sophisticated, so far-reaching, that it made Lauren's activities look like amateur hour. The network that had used her had been manipulating tech industry relationships for over a decade. Every major merger, every significant IPO, every game-changing innovation had been influenced by information gathered through romantic entanglements. The network had assets embedded in relationships with virtually every major tech CEO, every significant venture capitalist, every influential politician who dealt with technology policy. They had been playing a game where the stakes were measured in trillions of dollars, where national security was a commodity to be traded, where the future of human technological development was being shaped by bedroom conversations and pillow talk confessions. Chapter 8. The Confrontation. The confrontation between Bezos and Lauren happened on a Thursday night in the same study where he had discovered the safe. She returned from what she claimed was a charity planning meeting to find him sitting behind her desk, the contents of her secret files spread across the surface like evidence in a court case. She didn't deny it. She didn't try to explain it away. She simply sat down across from him and said, "How much do you know?" The conversation that followed lasted 7 hours. It was part confession, part interrogation, part therapy session. Lauren revealed details about her recruitment, her training, her handlers. She described a world where information was power and power was survival, where young women were identified and cultivated like crops, where romantic love was weaponized and emotional intimacy became a tool of espionage. She had been recruited in her 20s, when her career as an entertainment reporter provided natural access to celebrities and their business dealings. The recruitment was so gradual, so subtle, that she didn't even realize it was happening until she was too deep to escape. The network provided her with opportunities, connections, financial support, but always with strings attached. Every relationship was assigned, every romance was strategic, every emotional connection was part of a larger plan. By the time she understood the full scope of what she was part of, she had already gathered enough compromising information to destroy dozens of lives, including her own. She was trapped by her own success, held hostage by the very secrets she had collected. Chapter 9. The Counter-Strike. But here's where the story takes its final, most unexpected turn. Bezos didn't collapse. He didn't rage. He didn't call his lawyers, or his security team, or his crisis management experts. Instead, he smiled, because Jeff Bezos hadn't built the world's largest e-commerce empire by being naive about human nature. He hadn't revolutionized cloud computing by trusting blindly. He hadn't become the richest person on earth by being anyone's fool. He had known, not the specifics, not the full scope, but he had suspected Lauren's perfect timing, her seamless integration into his world, her uncanny ability to be exactly what he needed, exactly when he needed it. It had all been slightly too convenient. So he had been conducting his own intelligence operation, using resources that made Lauren's network look like a college journalism club. While she was gathering information on him, he was gathering information on her. While she was reporting to her handlers, his people were identifying those handlers. While she was playing a game, he was playing a bigger game. The safe had been a test. He had known about it for months, had allowed her to fill it with incriminating evidence, had waited for the perfect moment to reveal his knowledge. Musk's comment hadn't surprised him. It had been the signal he was waiting for, because Elon Musk wasn't working alone either. The two tech titans, supposedly bitter rivals, had been collaborating for 3 years to bring down the network that had targeted them both. Their public feuds, their Twitter battles, their competing space programs, it had all been theater, a carefully orchestrated performance designed to maintain their cover while they gathered intelligence and built their case. Chapter 10. The Resolution. The phone call that began this story, the one that supposedly alerted Bezos to Musk's revelation, was actually a pre-arranged signal. The assistant who made the call was part of Bezos's counterintelligence operation. The timing, the urgency, the apparent panic, it was all designed to maintain the illusion that Bezos had been caught off guard. In the weeks that followed Musk's television appearance, the network began to unravel with surgical precision. Assets were exposed, handlers were arrested, financial flows were disrupted. The intelligence operation that had been manipulating the tech industry for over a decade was systematically dismantled by the very targets it had sought to control. Lauren, faced with the choice between prosecution and cooperation, chose cooperation. Her testimony, combined with the evidence gathered by Bezos and Musk, led to the largest intelligence scandal in Silicon Valley history. Foreign operatives were expelled, corporate executives resigned in disgrace, politicians saw their careers destroyed by revelations of their compromised relationships. The safe that had started it all became evidence in a case that would redefine how national security intersects with technological innovation. The insurance policies that Musk had mentioned on television turned out to be exactly what he suggested: protection against a network so powerful that even its assets needed protection from their protectors. Epilogue. The new game. Today, Jeff Bezos and Elon Musk remain public rivals. They still compete in space, still feud on social media, still represent different visions of technological progress. But those who know the real story understand that their rivalry is now performance art, a necessary illusion to maintain their effectiveness as counterintelligence operators. Lauren Sanchez disappeared from public life 6 months after the scandal broke. Some say she's in witness protection, others believe she's dead. A few insist she's running her own operation now, using the skills she learned as an asset to protect others from the network that once controlled her. The network itself wasn't destroyed, it was transformed, driven underground, fragmented, forced to adapt to a new reality where its former victims had become its hunters. The game continues, but the rules have changed. The players know they're being watched, and the watchers know they're being played. And somewhere in Seattle, in a study overlooking Elliott Bay, Jeff Bezos sits behind his desk, monitoring data flows that most people can't imagine. But now, some of that data comes from an intelligence network he controls, one that protects the tech industry from the very forces that once sought to manipulate it. The hook that began this story, that phone call in the night, was indeed the moment that changed everything. But not in the way anyone expected. It was the moment when the hunted became the hunters, when the targets became the operators, when Silicon Valley's greatest rivals became its most unlikely protectors. The safe was never about Lauren's secrets. It was about revealing the true nature of power in the digital age, where information is the ultimate currency and trust is the most dangerous luxury. And in that game, the only way to win is to make sure you're always playing a bigger game than anyone realizes. That's the real story behind SafeGate. Not a tale of betrayal and scandal, but a masterclass in counterintelligence, corporate warfare, and the price of power in a world where privacy is dead and secrets are the only real weapons left.